going to use a little mini grinder with a cutting wheel and nip these off. I like that it's got coil springs and shocks. I don't know if I should take that one off. I think that's probably holding the, from the looks of it, it probably holds the spring in place. So I'm going to have to check the other side because that top bolt's missing. Yeah, maybe I'll cut this pin first, then take out that bolt head. Might be the easiest way to attack this. There we go. Yeah. Yeah, it appears that bolt holds the top of that spring. Springs aren't cracked, look in good shape. I see somebody cut, or the bolt broke, or somebody cut it off, and you can kind of see the keeper washer down in the bottom here. Might be able to get it out of there. There we go. So that'll have to go back up from underneath with the with a new bolt. Oh yeah, I think that bearing's served its purpose. Get this cotter key out. Cotter pin, cotter clip, whatever you prefer. Oh, good. That's not rusted. Well, at least it's not seized. I think it's been a while since these have been repacked. There we go. Yeah, a little bit gummed up. I don't know what's holding that on. Oh, maybe part of the old seal or petrified grease. There we go. I should probably go get a punch. But I'll try this. There we go. It looks like about a 7/8 or 1 inch straight straight axle, so no tapered. So off camera I knocked all the races and petrified grease out of the inside of this hub. Took some buffing wire wheels to it so it's all cleaned up. Just going to get ready to put a couple new races back in. I managed to find 2 bearings and 2 races in my stash and 2 seals. Get a little dab of grease. These are pretty straightforward. There's probably more than a few videos on the internet how to do it. Just like to get a real thin layer of grease or lubricant on both components. Use this punch just to help get it started. Some guys or some people will tap on the edge. I don't like doing that. The other thing I do so I don't have to try using a punch and slipping off and marring the new race is I keep an old race on hand, and I took a flapper disc and just ground off, I don't know, 1/16 or 1/32 of an inch, enough so it falls in and out. And then I'll use it to drive the race in all the way. Oh, that one went in easy. And to pack the bearings with grease, there's a few ways to go about it. One can purchase a bearing grease packer, but I don't do enough bearings to warrant spending that kind of money. The other one is you fill a plastic bag with grease, and I'll sort of do it 2 ways. So the one way was the way my dad taught me, and it's using the palm method. And basically you put some grease in your palm and you just keep dabbing it, and you can see it starting to come out around the bearings. And what that does is force the grease in around the rollers, between the rollers and the cage, and you have a fully packed bearing. This doesn't take long, doesn't cost anything, and I kind of think there's a bit of satisfaction in knowing that you got grease in everywhere you needed to. And there's one done. Of course, your hands do get a little greasy, but that's part of the fun. This maybe uses a little more grease than packing it by hand. But if you want, you could keep a heavy bag full of grease on hand and just keep doing multiple bearings. So I got more than enough grease in there for this other one. Drop it down in the corner and you just kind of squeeze the grease through it. And because it's sort of 100% positive displacement from the pressure from squeezing, you can pretty much rest assured that you got grease everywhere it needed to go. I'll flip the hub over. Sorry about the noise. Flip the hub over and put the other race in. Now, that first part is for the dust cap, but it did pop in there rather easily. And then I take my shaved down race, and I took enough off that it goes in there loose, but this mating surface lines up nicely. So I'm gonna pop that hub with the new bearings and races back on here. I gotta clean this up a little. But before I do that, sort of give you a walk around on this thing. I think it's, I believe it's a 1970 Viking trailer. Kind of a neat design. Little coil springs and shocks. And then the way it was designed, this center rail, at one point, I'm assuming these rollers allowed your keel to roll up. Went on Kijiji, our local, throughout Canada anyway, buy and sell place. Now these tires were on the trailer. They've definitely served their usefulness. And these are 4.8 by 8 inch. And on Kijiji I found a set, brand new tires. These are 5.7s by 8, so a little bigger, which will help. Probably gain 2 inches of height, maybe a little more. So I got a hold of the guy and he wanted 25 bucks for these and a box of parts. The beauty was when I got over there, he told me today's your lucky day, you can have them for nothing. So I got 2 new tires on rims that'll fit, the safety cable or chains that I need, 2 lightweight plastic molded fenders which I need, the light kit with all the wiring, nice plug on it. There's a license plate holder, some kind of bracket or a couple of brackets, axle brackets, spare tire assembly or holder, a wheel wrench, some spare bulbs, a couple of spring bushings, some dust caps, which I'm missing one of, and a couple of spare reflectors. So very much appreciate that fella bestowing all of those on me. Nice to run into those guys. I try to pay it forward. So having said that, I'm going to grab the hub, slide it back on without the seal. I haven't put the seal in the hub yet. I still have to redo the other side, but I want to clean this up and prep it for painting, so yeah, I'll put the seal in after. Then I think I'm going to drag this into the shop and just tear some things apart, take the shocks off and work them to see if they're any good. Check out all the bolts I need, because I'm going to replace all the mounting bolts everywhere with grade 8 hardened. Maybe do some sanding and wire wheeling on the various components to get it ready to paint. So to begin, I'm just going to clean this up a little bit. Give it a quick emery cloth. I'm just using 180 grit. That should do it. Just pop it in the greased bearings. Like I say, I'm just putting these on without the seal so I can take it inside and do some prep work. And just tap that cotter key back in place. There, that'll get it back in the shop. Rather than try to unbolt these rusty bolts, I'm just going to take the cutting wheel to it, because this hitch is pooched. Plus I need to extend the trailer tongue probably 3 feet, maybe 4. Whoops, the camera shut off. Was able to get this one out with the old impact gun. Yeah, that has seen better days, so onward and upward. I'm going to try getting one of the bolts out of this and then just see if this shock's any good, or if it's seized, or if I need to buy new ones. I think I might still do the trick. So I'll pull it off and probably take it back into town, buff it up, and paint it so it looks pretty. I managed to get the nut off the top. Just wanted to have a look at these bolts. Not really sure how this all sort of comes out. Just figured while I'm in this far, I may as well be thorough. So that's going to drop through. You should be able to fish this out between. Well, it's rusty, but it's still all there. And to get the bolt out, I'll grab my trusty magnet. Well, somebody out there probably knows the trick for getting the bolt in and the washer in and all held up into place without dropping everything, but I don't. So I'm going to try something here. Yeah, probably going to drop this a few times. What I'm going to try to do is fish the bolt through the hole of the washer. Like so. Whoop. Well, that wasn't overly bad. Now I'll stick the screwdriver through to sort of hold things in place. And then I'm going to hopefully lower the frame down. So far, so good. Okay, we'll see if I just got lucky on the first one, or if this one goes as easy. Trouble with magnets, they stick to everything that's metal. To borrow an old saying, I do it right because I do it 4 or 5 or 6 times. I realized that the spring washer for the top was upside down. And that won't do, so give it another try. After that many tries, I'm getting pretty good at it. The other thing I want to do is, the boat's sitting, or the trailer's holding the boat a tad high for what I want. So I'm going to, I think I've come up with a way to drop the frame that the boat sits in while maintaining all the integrity and the rest of the trailer. Axle height and all of that. Probably what added 1.5 inches to the height anyway is the tires. Okay, that's all the bolts. Hey, the rail's free. Let those fall through. And then last is I'll remove this sway bar. I'll take off the top one, and that cross rail should be free. Okay, I'll see if I can slide this out now. I'm going to start by using a cutting wheel to cut out around the chalk mark, because I'm going to build that pocket so it sits lower on the spring. Well, that's one down and one to go. So to make the bends, I took the grinder and ground through about, maybe a third of the way. It just makes it a lot easier for bending. And then I'll run a bead on the inside when I'm done. Just makes it a little easier if one doesn't have access to a brake. So I'll finish bending the other side. Probably have to do a little bit of hammering to get it nice and into a square U. So with it bent and the vice grips holding it up tight, I just give it a few love taps to help set the angle. And now I'll be able to clamp these and get them all set in place. Get the 4-inch height here, and then I can tack weld everything up. I'll weld a plate in the back, drill a hole for the top of the coil spring. I should be able to drop it into place. The pocket is clamped into place, and now I'm going to put a few tacks in to hold it, and then I'll commence welding. This little buzz box is, I'll just show you here, it's 110 volt. It's rated for 3/16, and this is 1/8 or 11 gauge, so well within the capabilities. And the wire has a 70,000 pound tensile strength, so should be no worries there. No, plastic clamps don't play well with welding. Now I'll put the plate on the back side. So the pockets are all tacked together. Whoops. I just have a little bit of welding to do. Both ends, then I'll drill a hole to fit through from the spring, and buff it all up, get rid of a bunch of the surface rust, bolt it in place, and then on to the next part of the trailer. Okay, not sure where I left off in the last one. I got the modified cross rail set in place. The bolts are snugged up, not super tight yet. I'm putting all new grade 8 hardware wherever possible. Now the next item is going to be to get this sway bar back in place. Hopefully I didn't bugger up the threads. I think that's the only one I forgot to buy a new bolt for, but it'll work. And for the other end, I need to cut this down and then weld it back in place. I believe I'll cut it right about there. I cut it down, saved you all the noise of doing so. The bolt started. Get a lock nut on it. That should work well. Well, that should hold it. Still has the same kind of travel. The only other thing I need to come up with is how I'm going to mount the shocks, because before I believe they were in these holes, which would have been up right about there. So I'll wait till I get the bed frame for the beds or bunks for the boat set in place, and then I'll have to devise some sort of top shock bracket. I think I'll set the frame rail back in place. Looks like it had two possibilities. I believe it was on the back one. Okay, so the main rail, or the keel rail, whatever it's called, is loosely bolted in place. I'm going to beef up the sides of the rail a little bit with some 1.25" angles, so I'll set that in place now, get everything clamped, and do some tack welding. So I got the angle iron side bracing all clamped into place. Nice and true and tight. There was a bit of a wow in it right at that point, so I've taken it out, and what I'll do is stitch weld along the angle iron both on the sides and from underneath. So yeah, it's chained in place and it's braced and clamped, and now I'm going to start doing some stitch welding. Well, I'm waiting for the welder to cool. It's only got, I think, a 10 or 20% duty cycle. So you can weld for 2 minutes out of 10, basically. I want to put a removable hitch bar or whatever on this. I've done it on a couple of boats. So I weld a receiver into the end of the trailer. In other cases I've cut the tongue off and welded it in, drilled a hole, and it also helps as a theft deterrent, and it also helps for storage space if you got a short garage. So I'm just going to clip out some of the metal on the top here. And this will slide in. I'll drill a hole for the pin. And weld it into place. Well, the welder's thermal protection kicked it off, so I welded a little longer than I should have. So I'll take this time to change out these bearings. There we go. Yeah, they look a tad mungy. I'll wipe these out and wash all this stuff down with degreaser, and then we can have a closer look. Okay, just using a punch to knock the races out. There's one. And there's two. Yeah, some of the finish has gone off the chrome, so I will put the new ones in. So I got the hub all cleaned out and gonna go with the new bearings and races, etc. It's cheap insurance. I'm going and trying these Amcam bearings. Got them the other day from the local bearing shop. About half the price of the other brand or brands. And it's a lightweight trailer, so I thought I'd give it a try. I'm going to do the lazy way of doing this and just put these in the bag and squeeze all the grease around them. Seems to work equally as well as any of the other methods I mentioned or that there are out there. Set it. Whoop. Yeah, that's set in there all the way. Still a little proud. Yeah, that's it. Well, the shaft's all cleaned up. Slide this on. Try to keep the grease in it. We'll check that again once I put the tire on and run it down the road. And yeah, if you watch this whole thing, I did put the seal on the other one, so it's good to go. Now back to welding. Hopefully the welder's cooled off enough by now. I think I lost some footage. It's the next day. I got the sort of the beefing up of the main rail done. Both sides all welded up. It did straighten it out a whole bunch at the bend that was here, so that's what I sort of wanted to accomplish. As I said, lost some footage, so I carved out this part. Got to clean it up a little bit. Drilled the hole through one side, lined it all up, and now I'm going to hammer this into place. Oh, the light's flashing, so hopefully I can get this in before the battery dies. Well, that should give me a little pivot point on the other side where I can use a pilot bit to get things started. Then I'll weld this all into place with the bolt through it or the pin through it. get a few tacks on this. I think that worked out pretty good. Let that welder cool off and I'll prep something else. Well, I got the receiver on this side all done, welded and buffed up. The other thing I've done, I had the pieces cut up of this 2x2 by 3/16 for the boat bed or bunks, whatever you want to call it. So everything's clamped in place and measured, and I measured diagonally so it's exactly square. We'll just get set up. I want to tack weld this bed frame into place while it's still square so I don't knock anything out of square. I want it bolted so if I do need to slide the cross support a few inches one way or the other and re-drill holes just to balance the boat once I get a bigger motor, I want to be able to have the option to do so. There's number 2. Just to hold everything in place. So I kind of need to get this thing roadworthy so I can get it out of the garage. My sister would like her garage back. Take it out to my brother's acreage. So I'm just going to try getting this winch put in place. So I'm just going to set it so it works, and I'll cut it down to size once I get this back out to the acreage. Okay, so I'm just building the beds for near the back to support the boat, bunks or beds. A little over 4 feet long. I'm just getting ready to drill in for the carriage bolts. I pre-drilled. I'd already cut and pre-drilled these plates off camera. Put that in as a placeholder. So I've got the bunks strapped into place. The bottom plates are loosely bolted to them. I cut the uprights for the supports. So I'm just going to put a couple tacks in to hold this in place. Well, I think that's all tacked up well enough. Now I think I'll go attack that tow bar and cut it down to size. So I drilled a 1/4 inch pilot already. Now I'm just going to drill in the 5/8. Just as soon as I center that bit. It's a bit of a tight fit, but it'll loosen up with time. Next thing, I think I'll take my cutoff disc and just knock these off. That all looks a little better. So I finished up pretty much all the frame welding on the boat bed. And then I cut these two, what are they, 5 1/4 by 2 inch by 1/4 flat. Just going to make the supports for the upper end of the shocks. I've got them set so that there's equal travel, and I got 3 inches of travel on the shock, so I got them set so the top of the shock's in the middle at 1.5 inches. I think I'll tack up the other one and unbolt the shocks and get the wood out of the way so I don't get too much spatter on either. There, those are done in place. It's time to maybe fabricate the license plate holder and the light brackets. Now out of just a bunch of old scrap, I'm building a sort of a swinging license plate holder. Okay, let's try and get this kind of even. Doesn't have to be perfect, but close wouldn't hurt. That should allow the license plate to move back and forth so I don't tear it off, driving in and out of various places. The bed frame's all welded. I got the shock brackets in place. Taillight brackets are done. Where the swinging license plate holder. Probably going to call it a day and pick up tomorrow, but I've got a couple of brackets made that I'm going to weld on there for the fender, for the top of the fender, and then I'll weld this on side to give it a little bit of stability. Do that on each side. Then probably start painting and doing some wiring. While I let the welder cool down, I think I will mount the tie downs for the transom straps. For the tie downs, I was initially going to go with these, but I've decided to just go simpler. Just a little gentle persuasion. And a couple of lock nuts. That should do it. Now I got a tie down tucked away on each side. Mount the fenders, I cut the sort of the holder or the framework out of 3/4 ply. Get some bolts in there to line it up. These are real lightweight plastic fenders, so they're not going to require a whole bunch to hold them up. They came in that box of goodies that I got from that fella for free. Awfully nice of him. Use a couple of fender washers. I'm going to cut off the excess bolts afterwards with a little zip saw. Well, that should do the trick. Got plenty of clearance. Nice lightweight fenders. We'll do the same to the other side, and then I think I'm going to slap some paint on this unit. So just starting on a real quick and dirty trim-clad paint job. Not going to get overly concerned about how beautiful it is. Probably take a couple of coats anyway. I buffed a lot of the surface rust off, so we'll give it the first coat and probably need at least two. So it'll be kind of boring sitting here watching paint dry for you. I'll bring you back throughout the process. Yeah, it's definitely going to require a second coat, but it's almost like the metal's soaking it up. It is quite a hot day, so it's getting tacky really quick. But it's coming. So I'm going to do the front a little bit later because I want to take the jack and the winch off. But I got the first coat of blue on it. You don't always color inside the lines, but that's okay. It's just a boat trailer. So let that dry a day or so and then come back and hit her again. So I wasn't going to cover the beds for the boat trailer, and then I realized or remembered that I got this, buddy gave me a chunk of this Duradeck, so I thought may as well use that. I think I'll bring it around and just leave a bit of a seam in the middle, place for water to drip out. Well, maybe do some final trimming at the end. Sort of tuck the ends in. Yeah, that should work. I got about a half a tube of silicone, so I'm just going to put some on here to help secure it. I'll see how those last or how well they work. I'll make up the other one and then get them put on the trailer. I forgot to do a little bit of welding before I painted, and so I marked some X's on the frame where I'm going to bare the metal and weld on chain links, because I'm going to run the trailer wiring through that split loom and just zip strap it outside of the frame rather than trying to feed it through the tube. It would be too much of a hassle up at the other end to bring it out with that removable tow bar. I'm going to buff off some of the surfaces. So I'll go around and do that all the way up the frame rail or keel rail, and then commence with the welding of the chain links. Well, there's two of them. I'll do that another 10 or 12 times and be done with that. So all the zip strap tie downs for the wiring harness have been welded on. I moved the jack ahead a little bit because I'm going to paint the rest of this section blue. Right at the end here, or on the removable tow bar, it's just a little spring-loaded clip so the wiring can pop into it or pop out if that gets removed. I touched up the paint on the winch stand because, well, it was a little beat up. I used silver because I didn't have white. Tightened up the top shock mounts. So I'm going to touch up the paint on those chain links and up on the front tongue, and then I'll install the bunks or beds. Well, everything's bolted back in place. Paint's still a little tacky. Got the bunks on. I think they'll do the trick. All that's left is to put a license plate on it and mount and hook up the lights, and then put the boat on and go fishing. I'm pretty happy with the way it's turned out so far. So I'm just going to build a little wheel chock for the front of the trailer. Inch and an eighth. So I'll make this piece 6 by 6. Doesn't have to be perfect, not building a piano. Beautiful. Just put a little dab of glue around it. I'll slap some paint on it, and now that provides a place for the wheel to set when I park the boat. That little chalk block just stops the trailer from rolling away on you. Also helps to chalk the back wheels as well. So that'll clip in there. Just going to zip strap the harness all along the boat frame. Well, it might not be quite as pretty as hiding it inside the tube. Makes it a lot easier for doing any work on it. Just going to set up for putting the side marker lights probably just above this hole, then I can run the wire through to the other side. I got my strippers, so I'll do it the old school way. Just need to bare enough to get a solder on. Just going to extend this wire so I can fit it through the trailer frame. Just going to use these self-drilling, self-tapping screws. Get this other side started. I'll connect up these wires and get some solder on them. Let that cool off a little bit. To seal it up, I just mixed up a little epoxy. Just coat everything. I'll let that tack up a bit, then I'll wrap it up with electrical tape. It's wrapped up with tape. Just going to tuck all this stuff away. There, it's all sealed. Alright, so I got the marker lights on, and I'll finish running the split loom down to the end and then tie in the tail lights. The lights set in place. Pop on a couple of washers and a lock washer and nut. Okay, the heat shrink's on. Okay, we'll stick this one together now. Let's let those cool down, put the heat shrink on, wrap it in the split loom, and then test them. Well, that one's working. Looks good. And that one's lit up. Just try some signal lights now. Left works and the right works, and I shut out the park lights, so I'm going to call that a success. Pretty much say the trailer's done. On to the next project, which I suspect will be the boat. Need to find a motor. Alright, hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for coming out.